guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about setting up a study schedule for medical billing and coding. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue, I'm a medical coder. Okay guys, so if you are in a program and you're wondering if you're studying enough, or if you are about to start a program and you want to make sure that you are studying enough, today's episode is for you. So the thing that you have to know about studying medical billing and coding is that if you are in a good length program, meaning 9 months, 12 months, or 18 months that you're getting to learn this, that's a good time to get that foundation learning. This will not be learned in 4 months, no matter what anybody tells you. It will not be learned in 6 months either, okay? You need time to learn this. And consistency with your studies is key. Being consistent and making sure that you are getting on a schedule is going to keep you from feeling out of control. This will make you feel out of control. There will be times where you will cry. It will make you cry while you're studying it. And the reason that I tell you is so that you are prepared. I don't want you all to be scared. I don't want you to be worried. I want you to know what you should be anticipating when you're coming into this. Now, again, not everybody will feel the same, and sometimes people just don't get it. And sometimes they're going through a fast-paced medical coding program because that's what they were sold and that's what they want. Well, I'm here today to tell you, if you want to have plenty of opportunity once you complete your program and get your certification, you need to be strong. You need to be a strong coder. And the way to build that is now. So I tell people that you have to study 20 hours per week. This is not negotiable. No matter what anybody tells you, oh, you can learn in 3 hours, or, over the weekend, you better be studying 17 other hours on top of that 3 hours. And it is very easy, even though it sounds like a lot. It's little bits of time and they all roll up into one. You never study longer than 1 hour at a time. People who study for long stretches of period at a time typically will burn out very quickly, or the information will not be retained. So that's something that you also have to watch out for. You don't want to be having this time and feeling like it's wasted because you're not allowing yourself to get that rest in. So what I have told people is it is 20 hours per week that you are setting up a study schedule. This applies even if you are taking medical terminology right now, or medical terminology or anatomy and physiology. It doesn't matter. It still needs to be 20 hours consistently all the way through. And the more that you stick with this 20 hours and you build this habit, because that is 80 hours a month, guys. It is just 80 hours per month. And the more that you stick with this, the more you're going to get stronger, because it's not going to feel like you're just learning everything instantly. And that's where a lot of people get discouraged because they want to know everything like right now. A lot of people don't feel comfortable with the unknown. They don't like not knowing things. But you have to understand that it's going to take this time to build it. So 20 hours per week, how do we get here if we have a full-time job, if we have kids and a family, how do we get there? 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at lunchtime, 30 minutes on your drive home. If you are driving into the office, or even if you are working at home right now, remotely, you can be listening to something for those 30 minutes of time. And that's already an hour and a half of study right there. That's already an hour and a half of study. You could be, if you are in medical terminology and anatomy, you could be watching videos on YouTube, listening to the video, listening to the words. We need to get that into our brain. And the more closely associated we can get it with like visuals, obviously. But if you're doing something, obviously you can't watch, but you can still listen. You can still listen. So by listening, that's going to give us, okay, that's 30 minutes that we're learning and we're still getting towards our goal. Then 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at lunchtime, 30 minutes in the evening, right on your drive home. Then you have 1 hour and 1 hour that you're studying. So you come home, you cook, you clean, you do whatever it is you have to do. And then you get your 1 hour break, because you do not have to be with everybody 24/7. My parents that are out there that are talking about their teenagers, your teenagers are doing something on their own. They're self-sufficient. I understand those with little babies. I understand. But if they have little babies, doesn't mean that you can't be listening to something while you're taking care of the baby or feeding the baby. Baby's not talking to you, right? So think about that. Now, if you're doing that and you're able to get that lesson time in, that's 1 hour that you're listening to something, or you're working through the workbooks, or you are watching the videos on YouTube, okay? Depending on where you are in your studies. If you are at the beginning and you're going through all the medical terminology and anatomy stuff, it's going to be a lot easier for you to do that. Because later on, when you start getting into the coding, that 30 minutes and 30 minutes and 30 minutes is going to be okay while you're at work or you're driving to be listening. But in the evening, you're going to have to start devoting those 2 hours to actually practicing the coding part. So when you are in the beginning part and you're working that anatomy and medical terminology, that's okay. But get that time in with the workbook. Start looking at things. Don't rely, please, don't rely on flashcards always on your phone, okay? Don't always rely on apps and things like that. People drive me nuts with these stupid apps. Guys, this is serious stuff. This isn't like, oh, we're just going to learn this test and then, yeah, that we're done. No, this is going to require you to get this really good foundation now of medical terminology and anatomy, so that way when you start to learn the coding, it's not going to be so confusing for you. The people that get really confused are the ones that have no clue what simple medical terms mean. They're lost. They're confused. They don't even know what body system they need to be in. That's those people that try to rush through. So I always say that when you connect your mind and your body with an activity, there is a higher chance for you to get that and keep it and retain it. As adults, guys, we are responsible for our families, for our work, for all these things, any other obligations that we have, we are responsible. So it is important that we make sure that we set ourselves up for success and start writing out those flashcards. If your children want to help you, let them help you. Let them help you. Have them hold the flashcards. Let them be a part of it so they can support you. Don't try to shoulder this all on your own if you are not allowing them to help you with this. Now, if they say, if you say, well, hey, I want you to help me, and they say no, guess what? They're going to leave you alone for that 1 hour that you need to be left alone, or that 30 minutes that you need to be left alone to be able to work out your workbook and work through those flashcards or write them down. That's all study time, okay? So doing that, that's 1 hour. You take a break, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then you come back to it for another hour, and then you work out. You continue to work out in the workbook. Again, wherever you are in your journey, you start working through that workbook for that 1 hour. And it is 1 hour that you have with this book. Everything else can run. And for those of you who have teenagers and not giving them responsibility, I want you to hear me when I say this. For those of you who have teenagers and they're capable of doing simple tasks like making a sandwich, let them make a sandwich, let them feed themselves a bowl of cereal. They need to be learning these life skills, because when they get old enough to be on their own, they've got to be able to know how to cook for themselves, how to handle basic tasks. And that's the problem that I see now, is that a lot of these kids, they don't know how to make simple dishes and cook and do these things for themselves. I don't see how, when there's a whole YouTube universe out there with all these videos, but that's another story for another time. But guys, I want you all to recognize that if there's things that people can do for themselves, this is something that you need to do for yourself, which is make that time. Okay. And I'm really talking to my parents out there, because I know it gets difficult. But I will say this also, these kids are looking at you and they're watching you to see if you get that discipline. Because if you give it up and you say, well, I'm trying to study and these kids are not letting me, so I'll just go ahead and just take care of my kids. Well, guess what? Then the kids think, okay, it's okay to give things up. No, it's not. We need to start having our young people be strong so that they can learn to stick with something. They're not going to try to go out there and chase money. They're going to try to go out there and earn money with, a career that they love. Okay. And this can be something that you love, but again, you have to give it its time so that way you can start learning. And you're doing that. So that's 3.5 hours in one day. You do this consistently all through the week for 5 days. That's 17.5 hours by the time you get to the weekend. And then guess what? You only have 2.5 hours on a Saturday or a Sunday to finish up your 20 hours for the week. Only 2.5 hours, and that's it. You get a day off of rest, or you get 2 days, depending. If you want to put in a little bit more time during the week so that way you can have the weekends off, it is entirely up to you, but you need to give yourself at least 1 day off per week. 2.5 hours in a single day is not bad. It is not bad. And you will have made your 20 hours in a week. And you do this consistently, it is 80 hours in 1 month. Now, I did for my Patreons, I made a little tracker, right? So that they can mark off, and you can hang this up. I'm going to, see, I made these. And it's kind of like how they do, like for the, if you're doing a money savings challenge and you color in the little bubbles or whatever, whenever you make a deposit or whatever, every single time that you put in your 30 minutes or your 1 hour, you can color in one of these bubbles. And when you do that, this is a visual that you can have in front of you so that you can see it and you can know where you are. And so I think that doing that, because it's something that's kind of fun to also do, because then you can see in real time, okay, I'm making this progress. It may not feel like it, but when I can look back at this tracker and I can see how much time I've put in, am I meeting my goal for the month? Because 20 hours per week is 80 hours in a month. And so, like I said, I made these trackers for my Patreons. I will sell them to you guys if you want. Contact me in the description box below. I'll put the price and the email address, so that way you can just Zelle if you are interested in purchasing these from me, and I'll just send you the PDFs for those. So that way you can print them out yourself. You can work through those, and then it can kind of help you. I have one with owls and books, and the other one is with hearts, because I wanted to try to do something festive for Valentine's Day. So that's just something that is just an option. It's something to kind of help you get that visual. You certainly don't have to do this. You can create your own trackers, so that way you can keep track of the time that you're putting in. But I think that it's useful to see something that you can look at and be like, okay, yes, I did this many, or I did this many, or I did this many. I can see where I'm at. And it's going to give you that encouragement when you start filling up all of those boxes, right? And so we want to get out of, oh, well, I could only fit in 5 hours. I can only fit in 10 hours. No, we need 20. We need to make this a non-negotiable. This is a non-negotiable. We will not settle for less than 20 hours per week. And again, if you're doing this and you say, well, I'm a nervous test taker, guess what's going to happen when you've been doing this consistently? You will not be a nervous test taker. Why? Because you will be more confident than the person who's trying to skate around and look for shortcuts and look for, oh, well, I'm going to look at process of elimination and that's how I'm going to pass my test. Okay, you may pass your test that way, but when you get in the real world, guess what else is going to happen? You're going to have another test from the employer. So the tests never stop. Just so you guys know, the tests never stop. I'm saying that. And again, with setting up your study schedule, if you have a workbook, and because workbooks tend to be different, I'm just going to say for example's sake, there's 18 chapters that you have to get through. 18. If you did one chapter in that workbook per week, that is 4 chapters that you have done in 1 month. If you do this over 4 months, that will give you your 16 chapters, and then you do it for the 2 weeks for the following month. That'll give you, so 4.5 months total that you have been working through that one workbook. Now, if you want to double it and go through a little bit faster, you certainly can, and get yourself to like 2.5 months to complete a workbook. But that's entirely up to you, and which it is possible, again, if you are consistently studying those 20 hours per week. But if you want to stretch it out and be like, I really want to take my time learning this, So then you can actually add on another subject in another workbook. Whether that workbook is that you got through medical terminology but you still don't feel strong, find another workbook that you can work through that same time that you are doing that. So for an hour a day, you're working on your medical terminology, and then the other 2.5 hours, you're working through your coding workbook. So that way you can start building that skill. You should be trying to do 2 subjects simultaneously, because even though it may seem like a lot, you're still going to feel like, okay, I'm getting somewhere. I'm getting somewhere, and that gives my brain time to shift and think about something else, which is going to help you retain the material a lot better than if you were just trying to focus in on one thing, because guess what happens? Then you start to forget everything else. So again, if you're doubling up on those things, for example, if your test requires you to know both ICD-10-CM, your diagnosis coding, and it also requires you to know ICD-10-PCS, well, guess what? You can use those, you can run those simultaneously. The Nellie Leon Chisholm book, which I have in the description box below, that is going to have both ICD-10-CM and ICD-10-PCS in that book. So you can run through that. I mean, that's simultaneous work. That's okay. And again, if you're breaking it down by chapter, if you're doing 1 chapter per week, say for instance, it's 18 chapters you need to get through. It may be a little bit more than that, but I'm just saying for illustration's sake, if you go through 1, it'll be 4.5 months to be able to get through that whole book. But again, if you have more time, or if you're going through a little bit faster, then you can set it to a little bit shorter time. But again, getting these challenge worksheets and filling them out so that way you can see and make sure that you're staying on track with the work is a good thing. Okay. Now the other thing about hanging things up so that we could see, again, if you're not in anatomy, you finished anatomy, you're going to need to still have those visual aids up where you can see them. So remember when we were kids and we had the alphabet and the numbers on the border of the room? That's what the teacher used to do, right? So that we could see them every single day. It is the same thing you need to be doing with your anatomy posters, or maybe if you have some medical terms that you know that you struggled with, you can write them out and you can hang them up where you can see them every time you go to study. And that would be good. And for those that are listening to me when I tell you to write flashcards and not fighting me on that one, you should only write flashcards for the things that you know you don't know. If you know that you don't remember them or you're having trouble recalling it, write those down on flashcards. It's not necessary to write out decks of hundreds of flashcards, because doing that is doing too much. And you're overdoing it and it's going to burn you out. So again, if we can consolidate and think about, okay, I know this word, I don't have to worry about these words, but there's this word that I get confused on, this prefix or this suffix or this root word. So I'm going to write it down on a flashcard. So that way I can have it with me. And whenever I have downtime, I can sit here and flip those flashcards. Okay. But writing them out is going to help you versus going through and doing the electronic stuff. Now, yes, the electronic stuff is convenient, and then sometimes in some cases it's helpful, but we are trying to do things that are going to help us commit things to our mind and to build this knowledge, not to memory, because you don't want to memorize, because I think that just puts too much stress on us. But if you do it enough that it becomes familiar, that's the ticket right there. And saving your electronic exposure for things like the coding guidelines and things like that, where you can listen to them, or you could read them, whatever, if you download them off the CMS website. If you can do that, that's going to, that's your time with that. So it's not going to be 100% that you're just staring at a screen all day. You need to be working with these books. And then part of orienting yourself with the books before you start studying it is taking a Saturday or Sunday, and maybe that 2.5 hours you still have, taking the time to just open and look at each and every single page to get familiar with your book. Now, it's going to take you more than 2.5 hours, But I'm telling you that the reason that you want to do this with all the books that you need to use, whether it is the ICD-10-CM, ICD-10-PCS, and the CPT book, or if you're taking an outpatient coding exam, the ICD-10-CM book, the CPT book, and the HCPCS book, taking the time to look at those and review them is going to get you comfortable with these books. You know, I get so many emails and messages from people complaining about how the books are so heavy and it's so big. They have every diagnosis code, every procedure code, every durable medical equipment, procedure, anything and everything known to man in these books. So yeah, it's going to be big. It's a lot of information, but this is the field that you selected. This is what you're getting into. This is not for the faint at heart. Certainly not. This is not for the faint at heart. If you get very sensitive about that, you may as well be looking for something else to do, because this is going to require you to dig deep and to develop that grit and to be able to put aside all of your wants right now that are not going to serve your future you, right? Say, for instance, you want to sit there and procrastinate all day. You want to be watching TV, or you want to be flipping through and going through all the internet and things like that. And that's not going to do you any good if you're just sitting there just wasting your time. Now, if you are looking at videos about medical terminology and anatomy, that's something that's different. If you're watching surgeries, that's something that's different. But I'm just talking about like watching cat videos or whatever, you know, funny videos, or the voiceover animal videos, or cooking videos, whatever. People tend to waste their time with that. You know, you can spend lots of time just scrolling, and you don't need to be doing that. You need to be focused on what you're doing. Asking you to do 30 minutes at a time or 1 hour at a time is not a lot. You know, and again, it is up to you to do the work so that future you can thank you. Because if you get to the test and you feel all nervous and all these things because you know you didn't study enough, well, don't be shocked at the result then. But if you do it this way and you commit to yourself that you're going to do these 20 hours per week, that you're going to be consistently hitting these 80 hours per month, it's when you go and you stroll up into that test that you're going to be very confident. And people who have listened and who have said, and he messaged me later and said, Blue, I had failed my test before because I wasn't putting in enough time. I just didn't know how much time to put in. I watched your video and now I've passed my test because I did what you said. And it worked. Well, it worked because you put in the time. You put in the practice. Practice, practice, practice. You have to practice. If you are running into a problem with a particular specialty, you can put a pin in that, and sometimes you have to just kind of wait and let your brain kind of marinate in all the things that it is, and review the guidelines for it in the ICD-10-CM book, so that way maybe it can make more sense to you when you go back to it. But if you get stuck and you say, well, this doesn't make sense, I need help, then reach out on LinkedIn and try to find yourself a mentor, or ask the audience the question. Ask them, you know, I know this about this particular specialty, but this passage doesn't make sense to me. Don't talk about how you're confused, you don't understand, and all this crying and whining and going on. Don't do that, okay? This is about the nails and the nuts and bolts of the whole thing. Just get right to the point. The more concise you are and the more you stick with that, the more success you'll have, because people will know that you're being serious and that you're not just there just to share your troubles. Because sometimes people will start commiserating. Once one person starts complaining and then somebody else agrees, and then all of a sudden there's all this commiserating. That's why I watch the comments very closely on my channel, because I do not allow that to happen, because that infects all the other people that are looking at that comment. And I refuse to let that happen on my channel. So again, I don't allow people to feel sorry for themselves on my channel. I understand that it gets very overwhelming and there's a lot of things that you wish were a lot easier. But sometimes just talking it out, getting right to the point and talking it out as far as what your question is, that's what's going to help you and make you succeed a lot better than feeling sorry for yourself. Okay? So get that, write down on a sheet of paper what you want your schedule to look like. If you're going to work through the Nelly book, you're going to say, I'm going to run through this chapter on this week. And then the next week you can plan out, okay, this chapter. And then also you're going to say the other subject that you're going to try to learn as well, or the other activity that you're going to be doing, listening to the guidelines. And you can write that down once, because sometimes it takes a few days to listen to the guidelines or to read the coding guidelines. All right. So if you can do that, that's going to help you. I have explained many times how to listen to the guidelines. I will not do it. I will not do it. So that's just something that you guys got to know, because I've repeated it so many times and people were very mean to me. And so I just don't, I'm not, I'm not going to deal with it. I won't, especially because it's meant to help you all. And then to have people, so many of them, be so nasty about it, like really, you know, so no. And so that's something that you're going to have to learn, you know, but like I say, reading the coding guidelines will make you a faster reader. Everybody starts out as a slow reader in the beginning, but it's not something, again, to be discouraged about, because you build your skill over time. Get to those 20 hours per week. And again, get these trackers or make your own. So that way you can start bubbling them in and you can feel like you're making some progress, okay? But that's just my advice anyway. So with that said, be consistent with your 20 hours. If you are not able to get to the 20 hours in a week, it is okay to make it up whenever you can. Maybe it's an hour that you missed for that week, okay? So I'm going to add on 30 minutes here. I'm going to add on 30 minutes there, and I made up my hour. Don't beat yourself up and don't just give up just because you didn't meet it one week, okay? You're going to know based on, if you're using the tracker, how much time you need to make up to get to the current time. But again, always make sure that you are taking a break after 1 hour. Do not study for longer than 1 hour just to try to cram in the extra time. All right? If you have 30 minutes that you need to do, you want to add on, you want to make it 45 minutes, do 2 45-minute sessions, maybe missed 30 minutes. You want to do 2 45-minute sessions, that's okay. That's okay, because that's going to help you to get back that half hour that you missed. And that would be my advice anyway. So with that said, best of luck to you all out there. The independent study and all of the links and all of the recommendations are in the description box below. So check it out. So that way you have all of those things there. With that said, I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see y'all next time. Bye.